Stranger Things, Season 3, Episode 5, The Flayed, is the best cartoon I've seen in a long time. This is the most cartoonish episode. Oh my. Hello, welcome to Ignore the Bell. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Tyler.
Yeah, we are going to talk about this. In case you are new to the channel or to what we're doing here, we are doing an episode by episode review slash discussion slash reaction to each episode in Stranger Things Season 3. And if you're interested in any of the previous ones, then you can check that out. We're posting a video a day for each episode in this season. And we also did a full discussion of Stranger Things, the first season, and Stranger Things 2. And so, yeah, we're going to get into this one, episode 5, The Flayed. Before we get into it, though, we do have a sponsor for today's episode. So our sponsor for today is Radioactive Soda, because if it comes down to getting radiation poisoning from drinking green goo or dying of thirst, then Erica will apparently choose radioactive soda. And how dare you question that? What's wrong with you for thinking that's a bad idea? Oh man, I wanted her to drink it. If that could have dispatched with her character. And even if she's dying, she's like, it was still a good decision. She wouldn't even admit that she was wrong.
Yeah, she'd be like, you guys are all gonna die soon anyway.
Yeah. I'm just smarter because I got there first. Because she is too cool for this show. Right? No matter what you do. Like, she is just smarter than you. She's cooler than you. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Episode 5, The Flayed. I hope you enjoy. All right, so we're talking episode 5, The Flayed of Stranger Things season 3, and I was just saying that I'm happy that you laughed when I said this is the best cartoon I've seen in a while, because this episode is so cartoonish, and to the point where it didn't even bother me. I just went like, whatever. We've given up on any sense of reality, of verisimilitude, suspension of disbelief. It's just like, fine, I'm watching a Bugs Bunny cartoon at this point. Who cares? And I'm like, it's not a terrible cartoon. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, with Nancy running through the halls of the hospital, you can almost see the background looping.
Yes.
It's like a Scooby-Doo segment where it's like, oh, is she in this store? Oh, is she in this store? Meanwhile, she's peeking out. Is it safe to come out? Like,
totally. Yeah. Like, she starts to run and her legs are just spinning before she actually gets traction and takes off. And like them on the elevator, like when it's falling at the beginning of this episode, it was like, I'm trying to think of what this is. I think it's from The Simpsons, where they're just like falling to like through this bottomless pit and they have to take a deep breath like after screaming. It's like, ah, and then it's like, ah, like it was cartoonish. The entire thing was just like, oh, okay, we're not going to pretend that any of this makes any sense anymore. I mean, even at one point, like, this is when I really just gave into it. When Joyce meets with Murray Bauman, the reporter, that investigative journalist guy, and he's such a ridiculous character to begin with. And then he's giving them a hard time, and then she's like, look. And then she lists off all the things that they've gone through. We've been investigating properties, like we've been out all night. We found this secret Russian thing in the basement of a house. We've been shot at. We had to walk miles, through the woods. We haven't had anything to eat. We stole a car, right? And, all of this. And now you're going to give me a hard time. And she's like, because I just want my magnets to work. And then I'm like, You're right.
Yeah.
This is so ridiculous when you actually say it, of what the plot has been. And when you compare that to season one, where it's like Joyce in season one, this is where she's at. I don't know where my son is. He's missing. I don't know what's happened. She's not assuming that it's some great big conspiracy. She's just devastated. She's floored by this. She's, already like gone through this divorce, and now her youngest son is missing. And then she has to go through this awful process of having a funeral for him and not quite believing that he's gone, but everybody thinks that she's crazy. And it's like you go from that to, yeah, it's just, this is ridiculous. Like crazy
Yeah.
Russians and stealing cars and getting shot at, and magnets are falling off. And
Yeah, if it hadn't reached the point of parody before, that was the moment, I
yeah,
think, where
yeah,
it fully stepped over that line and was just like, yeah, because she's been like, she is just so, she's acting crazy, which is kind of her thing that seems to happen
sure.
in every season.
Uh-huh.
But this time, like, she's acting crazy for a ridiculous reason.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, yeah, this, like, are you still concerned about your magnets?
Right.
Like, I don't
Exactly. When she
understand
actually
why.
puts it into words, it's just like you can't help but just go, all right, this is just absolute silliness. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not even an attempt to be a serious show at this point. At least like
Mhm.
this episode. Like, because
Right.
I feel like there were really good moments in episode 4 and pretty good moments in 3. There was a couple in episode 1, and then it wavers between that and just silliness. But
Right.
this episode is just, yeah, complete. Everything about it. I don't think there was one part of this episode that didn't feel like a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, I did actually enjoy the well, for one thing, the final image of like the goo monster.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm just kind of like, that is legitimately terrifying, and I think that like that, you know, is going to be cool to see how they go up against it. Um, but the fact that it's two human bodies that instantly melted and then combined into one,
Yeah.
that's really weird. Why were those two in particular connected? Like,
That thing was so much bigger than their two bodies.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing, is like even that, like it is cool looking, but like the entire fight sequence didn't make sense to me, because it's like you hit one and then he's like the other guy, he didn't get hit, and then it's like you see the side of his head, he gets like these black veins are going, and he's like, ouch. Right.
right,
And then it
yeah,
like kind of goes away like he's Wolverine, and it's like, okay, it's so confusing because you already said, like, Billy says, oh, they almost killed me. And it's like, yeah, but they can't kill us. And it's like, well, it seems like if you kill one of them, you kill all of them.
right. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm confused about. I don't understand, like, because I mean, these two guys, they die.
Yep.
So are all the Flayed dead now, or do these two have some particular connection that we don't get or don't get to know? Like,
It's such a strange thing how they're limiting our perspective, how we're seeing, like, because we got to see Billy when he's fighting, and then we get to see these two knuckleheads when they're fighting, and you can see that it's impacting the other one. Whatever you do to one hurts the other. And you saw that with Mrs. Driscoll as well, right? That you got those intercuts with her in episode 3 or 4,
yeah.
where it's like when you're attacking Billy, then she gets hurt. So,
Well, I
but that,
didn't
but
even see that as like Mrs. Driscoll getting hurt. I saw that as like just like the influence of him, of the Mind Flayer, like acting out. Do you know what I mean?
oh,
Just
okay.
being like trying to hold on harder.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, but now I'm just like, well, now I don't understand what's happening. Why
Yeah.
is it
Like,
hurting
what
both
about
of them?
all of the others who are in the basement? right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like, we're being denied that view. So
Hmm.
that's where you get this confusion when you're watching. You're trying to keep up with the logic of it. I've heard it said before. I think it's the guys on Red Letter Media. Then they talk about this, that with horror, you need to have rules. And without rules, then it doesn't, like, it just, rules within a horror film make it a lot easier to follow what's happening. uh, because if you're dealing with the supernatural, then it's like, instead of just saying like anything's possible or who knows what can happen, that if you've got clearly established rules, then it makes it easier as a viewer to know, like, to be able to suspend your own disbelief, essentially, right? I
Yeah.
haven't heard them get into it like to quite that degree. They basically just like say there needs to be rules.
Right.
And I mean, I don't think horror always needs to do that, but horror does do that a fair bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And this doesn't
Um,
really have rules. Like, we kind of got a sense of that with Will when he explains what's happening, how you've got the mind flayer that is in the upside down, but an imprint of it continues to be on our side of, this threshold of the veil
right.
between the worlds.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Will. Oh
Uh-huh.
my goodness. What what's happening? So now he can't tell when like the mind flayer is doing things until it's already too late. He's in the hospital while lights are flickering in another hallway,
Yeah,
but he can't tell anything is going wrong until like both the other guys die.
right.
And like
That's
and
what
then
I
he starts to be like, "Oh, something's going on." And it's like
the lights were
you
flickering for
knew
so
before,
long.
like
Yeah,
when you were in the woods, like
right. That's what I'm saying is like,
yeah,
that entire thing, and that was so much of the episode, was that fight sequence in the hospital with our primary group who are just sitting around in the waiting room doing essentially nothing. Uh,
yes. And those intercuts are the most frustrating to me. I think that those are the worst part of this episode, just because we're cutting from what is like this is exactly what we've been saying, specifically you've been saying for a while now, where this show doesn't know what it wants to do. It's giving us, like tonal whiplash.
yes,
Um,
yes,
and this is a perfect example of that, where we're seeing Nancy running away from these, possessed people,
yeah,
like through the halls, like screaming her head off. She is
uh-huh,
scared for her life. And then we cut back to see, Mike and Elle, and Mike is like playing off her laps, like, does your species like M&Ms? I'm
mm-hmm,
like, uh,
yeah. That, like,
all
this is the
right.
moment to
Like,
see them
and
get back together.
and that's the only like thing that happens in that scene. And then she just holds out her hand and he pours some M&Ms into her hand. And then we cut back to, look, Nancy's running. I'm like, what are you doing? This
Right.
is not relieving tension. This
No.
is or I guess it's relieving too much tension because there should be tension, you
Yes.
know?
But that's the thing is, like, watching that, I couldn't help but notice, like, when I was watching this episode, I just kept thinking back to season one and the first time that I watched season one, that there were genuinely tense moments, that there were
Mhm.
elements of horror to the show where it was like it was genuinely unsettling at times. Um,
Yeah.
like, I felt like there were like genuine thrills and some real suspense in the first season. But with this, I was just watching like this. Okay. Oh, okay, they're gonna attack them. Like, it doesn't feel tense in any way. And it's in part, you absolutely are right, because they're cutting back to the rest of them in the waiting room. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, that entire fight sequence was like, oh, okay, they're in a construction zone, like in a construction wing of the hospital. That's why they can be screaming and having this fight, and no one hears this. No one is coming to help, but it just seemed ridiculous to me
Yeah. Yeah. All this uh,
because they didn't start in an abandoned section.
right. Yeah, and oh man, it is so frustrating because Nancy goes out of her way in order to get the party, right? She's
Uh-huh.
like, "Hey, you guys, come with me because I want you to see, this whole thing with Mrs. Driscoll."
Yep.
And then they have them manufactured, like, oh, only two visitors at a time.
Right.
And so then who does she pick? Not Will, who of
No.
course has this connection. No, no,
Yeah.
no. She goes with Jonathan so that
Yep.
we can have that nice little moment with the two of them in the elevator,
Yep.
which is so bad. I hate it so much. Partly because the elevator music that is playing in the background is so loud. That is the loudest elevator music I've ever heard.
Yes.
It's like intentionally being like, hey, there's elevator music
Right.
playing. Calming background music? It's
Right.
playing. Want to make sure you pick up. And I'm like, I get it.
How many times have you ever heard elevator music on an elevator?
um, Oh man, not as often as movies and TV would make you
I
believe.
want to
I
say
have.
zero. I can't think I've ever been on an elevator that has music.
I know that the elevator, like at Bridlewood Mall, or the old elevator at Bridlewood Mall, then it had elevator music, and I remember
Oh.
like standing in the elevator and being like, "There's music playing. It's actual elevator music."
Maybe that's my issue. That's a two-story mall, so I always take the stairs. I'm like, why would I ever take the
Right.
elevator? But okay, I guess I've missed out. Yeah, no, I don't quite get that this whole elevator music. But yeah, no, the music with that is no good. It I mean, I tweeted this out earlier today, and I'll bring it up now because, like, we were talking about this last night, and I'm like, okay, we'll
Yeah.
bring it up on the podcast. That the tonal shifts in this show, it feels like if you're watching Ridley Scott's Alien, except one of the characters is being played by Jerry Seinfeld, and
Yes.
so it's super serious because like that's what and the tone of Alien is really what Stranger Things was doing in the first season. That it
Yeah.
is a horror sci-fi, supernatural mystery, right? And that
Yeah.
but it's the emphasis on horror. That like that's
Hmm.
the first genre element, but it's also science fiction. You've got some other subgenres within there, but overall it's playing it very straight-faced. It's intense, it's serious. Everybody is legitimately in danger and they're all scared, and there's no real comedic moments to you don't have any silly characters, you don't have any ridiculous dialogue.
Right.
Everybody genuinely is terrified and genuinely wants to survive, but they don't know if they will. But imagine watching Alien and just one of the characters is Jerry Seinfeld, and he's like, do you know what's happening here? We got to get off of the ship.
Yeah. Ah, the alien just popped out of that guy's chest.
And then it cuts back to a super serious thing, and then it's like Jerry going, like, oh, I don't want that thing to pop out of me. And
Yeah.
he's because you know how Seinfeld, like on this show, he tries, and I've heard him talk about this multiple times, he's like, because he knows that he's a terrible actor, right? And he just can't help but smile all the time. He's always kind of grinning on the show, even when he shouldn't be.
Right.
And it's like, so he ends up just being very funny no matter what he's trying to do. And he said that part of the reason why he was always smiling like that is he couldn't believe how good of actors everyone else on the show was. He's like, they really believe the lines they're saying. Like, this person is so committed to what is going on, they are genuinely emoting. And he's like, they're acting their heart out. That is crazy. How do they do it? And it's just like kind of like laughing about how capable they are and kind of how silly acting is in general. That it's like they
Right.
really make you believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what this show feels like. You have multiple characters on the show who are just they're like, wait, you guys are taking this serious? Like Erica is that character. She's like
Yeah.
she doesn't act like she's scared at all of anything. She's basically Jerry Seinfeld. Uh, or you've got Dustin at times who does the same thing. Robin at times has done this. You've got just a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, Erica is the Qbert of this series, and Qbert is the character from Futurama, who is always it's this character. Actually, that's the character. Like that about sums them up. And Futurama intentionally wrote Cubert as a parody of that character.
Right.
They intentionally were like, yeah, we're gonna put in this, little know-it-all character who's gonna point out how stupid everybody else is,
Mm.
but we're gonna play it for laughs, and we are actually going to point out that he's that character, and we're going to, like really fully embrace that it's like the humor there is that nobody likes him on the show, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
all the other characters on Futurama all hate him. They're like, stupid Cubert."
Yeah.
And this show, it now has that character, but nobody seems to hate her nearly as much as they should. Like,
Right. They don't
there's
like
just,
it doesn't make sense having a character like that or characters like that and these moments of silliness if you want us to also be taking this show seriously. And
mhm.
that's where it gets so frustrating because Ridley Scott's Alien works because the tone remains consistent throughout the film, right? And then if you're
Right.
looking at James Cameron's the sequel Aliens, then it's like that one is action slash
Yeah.
horror slash sci-fi, but it's really emphasizing the action aspect, and that's where the tone is. And with this, it doesn't seem to quite know what it's doing. And this episode, though, is I mean, I would say it's very consistent within the episode. Like episode 4 had moments where it wavers. Episode 3 had moments, and 2 and 1. They have moments where they're wavering between being a comedic show and being a serious show. And this one is just like, no, every part of this is just going to be silliness.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I feel like I didn't mind the fight scene as much as you did, but those intercuts ruined it. Um, that I feel like those were genuinely like some solid horror moments in
Yeah.
there, like when they're and everything. But yeah, just because like and honestly, like I one thing that I really appreciated is when Jonathan was knocked down
Hmm.
and then he was hit with like the metal chair.
Yeah.
Like he was down.
Yeah.
He was down. And when he's trying to get back up, he doesn't just stand back up and go, "Oh, no." He actually has to reach out, grab the chair that was what, hit him
Yeah.
on the back and
Yeah.
use that to help him get up. And I'm like,
Right.
that's a genuine moment right there.
Yeah.
That's a sense of realism. And then we cut back to M&M's.
That's what I'm saying is that's where I just had trouble because it's not even that I had trouble. Like that's where I enjoyed it. I was just like,
Mhm.
okay, this is because my expectations for it now, I've said it multiple times on our podcast so far with this show that it just has to make up its mind. And
Yeah.
if it just goes fully in one direction or the other, I'll be happy. But I'm tired of the shifts. And if it is going to become more of a silly parody of an intense horror sci-fi show, then okay, maybe I'll keep watching, maybe I won't, but at least I'll know what I'm getting. But it just feels like I don't know what I'm getting from scene to scene.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. I would like to point something out that's very minor, but bothers me more than or I just think is really funny.
Okay.
Um, okay, when when Mike and Lucas are like at the vending machine, right? And
Yeah.
they're trying to get the Kit Kat bar out of there,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
very specifically are waiting for the Kat bar to fall.
Uh-huh.
And then Elle does her thing. First of all, we get a sound effect of, "Wooden,"
Oh
which
yeah.
is completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Um, but I I slowed it down and I watched it again. Every other candy flies off the shelf. Every other chocolate flies off the shelf except for the Kit Kat.
So is that her way of being a jerk?
Right? That's what I'm thinking. Like Lucas is like, "Oh, there's your olive branch," and I'm like, "No, she intentionally did everything but the thing you want."
Yeah, I'm not sure that that was an olive branch. That was pretty passive aggressive.
Right. Oh
Oh
man,
man,
sorry. It was just like
that's
it
funny.
really stood out to me.
No, I like that. I did not notice that. That's great. Um,
Oh,
yeah. All right. Can we talk about the other storylines? Because you've basically got three different storylines in this episode. You had, I guess, four different groups before. Now we've got three different groups because Nancy and Jonathan have paired up with the younger party, and then you've got Hopper and Joyce, who are a separate group, and then you've got Steve, Robin, Dustin, and Erica, who are a separate group, right? And those are
yeah,
basically it at this point.
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
So, do you want to talk about Steve and this underground Soviet thing, or do you want to talk about Hopper and Joyce?
You know what? Okay, let's quickly talk about Hopper and Joyce.
Sure.
Okay, so beginning of the episode, they discover this the lab like under the house,
Yeah.
which is like under one of those flip up beds.
Yeah,
Um,
Murphy bed.
yes, yes, thank you. And they just go down there and they find two Soviet scientists. And I'm just like, okay, this is clearly a huge facility, and why are these two scientists like right by the entrance? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're nowhere else. Um, but then you get the Terminator who
Oh
comes
yeah,
after them.
he is the Soviet Terminator. He even looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's got the same
I,
hair. He just looks like a thinner version.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that like I saw somebody tweet something about like how it had to be a direct reference because Terminator came out the same year that this season takes place. And I'm like,
Okay.
but that makes absolutely no sense. Like it's not like he's inspired by it. Like the writers clearly are, but what
Well,
is
that's what I'm
going on?
saying. Is like that this is just it's a joke of a show. It's like everything like now when we meet characters and they're caricatures and it's supposed to be
Yes.
funny. And I'm just like, okay, I mean, I guess it's kind of funny. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting on board with this ridiculousness where I'm just like, do I think it's a good show now? No, I think it's a pretty bad show, but it's, kind of funny.
Entertaining.
It's
Yeah.
entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the moment when like Hopper and him are fighting, I think is done really, really well until Joyce throws the gun over, and then Hopper just goes, "Oh no, it's closer to him. Let's get out of here."
Like Zoink Scoob, let's go.
Yeah, like they literally like have a shot, like a close up of him being like, "Oh no!" Like,
It's true. They do. And even her, like, she doesn't try to hold the gun. She like, and that's like the worst throw ever. And it
yeah,
was cartoonish. It was
yes, it
like,
absolutely was.
yeah, it didn't make any sense.
Pulling
I
out
mean,
the underside of the Murphy bed. They're up there somewhere.
oh, that whole just shooting like crazy. It's this episode is just so silly. I like it's just at least I feel like it's been wavering so much and this episode is just like whoosh.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay, I'll go with this because I don't know what to do. I don't even know if maybe it can recover. Maybe. We'll see. But at the very least, within the episode, like I say, you at least have tonal consistency. And then
Right.
they do everything. Like when Hopper does end up kidnapping Smirnoff slash Alexei, right?
Yeah.
Alexei? How does she pronounce it?
It's a, like yeah, I think it's a like C.
Alexei. Okay. So, they kidnap him and it's just he is he's basically the Soviet Erica. He's not he's not really concerned. He's happy enough being like
Yeah.
he doesn't think that he's going to be killed. He doesn't think he's going to get shot in the back if he runs off because he sees a 7-Eleven.
Right.
He's in there. He's happy enough to just like steal little bits of the, you know, the icy or the Slurpee machine. The
Yeah, you literally have like every single cliche imaginable in this one storyline.
right.
It's like, oh yes, the hidden Soviet base. Oh look, they're being shot at as they drive away. Oh, the car doesn't work, so they have to walk the rest of the way. Oh, they've got to steal supplies from the local store. Never mind, they're going to steal somebody else's car by pretending to be policemen, even though one of them is a policeman.
Is a police officer. You're right. Absolutely.
It's every cliche imaginable. Oh, look, now they've got, one of the enemy guys who isn't really that bad. He's just like, oh, I'll help you now because you captured me. Like every cliche.
Right. And then, you know, Hopper's trying to explain what's happening. Oh, he's a very dangerous guy. And it's like, you can tell what he's saying it. Like, he's not even trying to be believable. And it's like, he's a child murderer. Yeah. And then Joyce is like, oh, he's a forger, a child murderer. Like, and it's like, it's literally getting to the point where I'm like, this is kind of getting funny.
Right.
Because it's like, it's not believable. It's not good. It's not serious, but it's kind of getting silly. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like with the exact same dialogue, you could plop Jim Carrey into the role of Hopper, and
Right.
this would be hilarious.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. It's becoming a Jim Carrey
I'm a
movie.
police officer.
Oh man, they need to recast. David Harbour is getting swapped out for Jim Carrey in the next season. I will watch that. They just need to lean into this because they've already been recruiting comedic actors, right? The guy who plays Murray Bauman, then he's a comedian, as I've pointed out before, and you know, they had Paul Reiser playing, you know, Sam Owens, the director in season 2, and like he's a comedian. So yeah, I mean, just go for it. Just all comedians. It's just going to be just a funny show at this point.
Yeah, I am frustrated that Sam Owens isn't back, by the way.
I know.
I don't like he said like, oh, yeah, maybe a year, maybe 6 months. So it's been 6 months. Has he like just left? Because wasn't he like supposed to be making
It's been
sure?
like 8 months.
Okay, yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. Like it just feels like, oh, are we just not going to get to see him anymore?
How about this?
I
As
don't
far
know.
as like the timeline, how long do you think it took the Soviets to drill down halfway through the planet as far like how deep they've gone with this thing to get all of the permits to build a mall in Indiana? You know, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'm saying it's not like whatever, you know, some place where they're not going to have regulations. They're going to have, you know, building codes, and you're gonna have to do all of this stuff to develop the site. Like that takes years. Years to do all of this stuff. But within the story universe, it's only been like what, a year and a half?
Yeah, yeah. Since like a year since we saw them experimenting in Russia. So if this is the same group, like, did they plan all along? Oh, eventually we'll move to our new site that we've been building for the past 10 years. Like, I, I don't, yeah,
Well, but wouldn't
it's,
they go to Hawkins because a year and 8 months ago, 11 opened up the gate, and they now know they've somehow have figured out on the planet that that is like a nexus point to this other dimension. And
yeah.
therefore they need to infiltrate the place and get their own facility underground. So I don't see them having done that within the timeline that we have on this show, because how could they possibly drill a hole that is like looks like it is thousands of feet deep? Like they've dug the biggest hole ever, and they've got this perfectly operating elevator. If you know anything about the Soviet Union, especially by the mid 80s, they couldn't build a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it really, like it was falling apart by the mid 80s. And like there's everybody knows that they've really struggled with all kinds of feats of engineering, and
Mm-hmm.
they were not keeping up with the United States. And
Yes.
so the idea that
A,
they've built this in this amount of time and it
a
is this
fully
functional,
functional mall.
right? Fully
Because
functional mall.
they leased out all those stores. They
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, all of that. And then, I mean, even like, because this show was believable, especially the first season, because the first season is excellent, but it was great when you had the Department of Energy and you see the equipment that they're using, and it's there's a lot of analog, right?
right. Yeah.
There's a lot of physical buttons, and you can see like toggle switches, like metal toggle switches, and things like that. It's like big pieces of equipment, and 1980s computer technology when they do have computers, uh, but a lot of it is electronics or analog equipment. And then you see what the Soviets are doing with their machine that looks like something out of the MCU.
Right. Yes, it absolutely does. Yeah, because like uh everything in season one is functional, right?
Yeah.
Like the basement of the facility doesn't look, it doesn't look good. Like it's just like, whatever, this is just a room. Like we can have bare walls and everything. Now, like the Soviet, full underground tunnel network has chrome everything. Like
Uh-huh.
everything's been polished
Yeah.
to a mirror shine, and it's just like,
And
what is going on?
that massive thing that they've created that has got like the glowing blue, I don't
Yeah.
know, energy field like within the engine itself, and it seems to be nuclear powered using plutonium or something, and but that the spinning, and then they've got this, I don't know, like phaser that's coming out of it,
Yeah.
going into, and I'm just like, oh, like you know what it feels like? It's like watch the first Fast and the Furious, and then look at Hobbs and Shaw, where it's like, I'm now Superman, Idris Elba, and
Yeah.
it's like The Rock, and it's like this used to be about legitimate street racing. Like if you're looking at the first one, then it's like,
Yep.
I mean, like, yeah, it's hard to believe that everybody has access to, NOS and all of that stuff, but like to have nitrous oxide on their cars. But
Yeah.
it's like you could actually, like, no, it was all pretty grounded in reality.
Yeah.
Now that series, like, I don't watch the movies, but I've seen the trailer for Hobbs and Shaw. I'm like, how is this the same franchise?
Yeah. Honestly, I've seen so many videos about Fast and Furious, like the series, like in one where they're dragging a uh the safe from a bank, like the full room
Right.
of a bank with like a sports car.
Right.
They're dragging it through the city. I'm like, what is happening?
Look, I've got a couple pretty functional Volkswagens, Volkswagen Golf, Volkswagen Jetta. If you look in the owner's manual, the Jetta is like, do not tow anything with this car. This car is not equipped to tow. Don't even think about hooking it up. And it's like the Golf is like, oh, it can tow maybe 500 pounds. But yeah, like a sports car is going to be like, come on. But
So good.
yeah, but
Okay.
that's what it feels like. Is that like with this show, it's like I feel like I'm watching a whole other universe where it's like the normal
Yes.
rules of physics no longer apply. This has become a kind of a comedic science fiction show
Mhm.
where the technology is like, oh, you can't find that in the real world. We're just not dealing with the real world anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about our final group then. Unless you had more to say about Joyce and Hopper.
Um, yeah, no, it's silly. And
Yeah.
Alexei is like, with him drinking the icy with his cutesy face and whatever. I'm just like, he is the Erica. He's the Soviet
Yeah.
Erica.
Yeah.
But okay.
Uh, okay, so getting to Erica
Aha.
and
Great.
Steve, and Robin and Dustin. Um, okay, you have the completely unnecessary toilet humor, literal toilet humor
Actual
in
toilet
the
humor.
elevator.
Makes no sense why, if they've been there all night, this just came up.
Right. Yeah.
Like you've watched The Office. At one point, Dwight and Pam are stuck on an elevator for like 3 minutes, and Dwight immediately starts peeing in the corner. She's like, "We've been on this thing for we've been stuck for 3 minutes." Well, we have to establish a pee corner, and he is right that if you're stuck on that thing after a certain point, you are going to have to establish that there is a corner where this is going to happen.
Right.
But no, that was the first time anybody's had to go to the bathroom, and then we actually see it on screen, and it's
And
playing it
then
for comedy.
yeah, and then the Russian comes in and he says, "Oh, like it smells
Smells
in."
like piss.
Yeah. And it's just like, "Yay, this is funny."
Right.
Mm, sure. That's definitely what I came for.
I know that's the thing. And
Oh.
then they use the, I don't know, radioactive canister to hold open the door, and then it explodes, and these kids have no sense of self-preservation. They all lean in to breathe in those fumes. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
um,
it's like, wow, that was really powerful. It just ate through the floor. Let's see how close I can get.
right. Then they go walking down this endless hallway. They don't even try to just keep their voices down to
Oh yeah,
stay
I know.
like
It's
it's just they don't behave as though they are in danger. They don't act
mhm.
like they're scared, even though they kind of say they are. They act like people who essentially, I think another example of this would be it's like the difference between James Bond and Austin Powers. And it's like,
Yes.
Austin Powers, where it's like, oh, I'm infiltrating Dr. Evil's base. I have to be, super quiet. And it's like, I'm really scared. And it's like, you're watching this and you're like, okay, but you're never scared. You don't take it
Yeah.
seriously because it's just funny. That's what this episode felt like. It was just like Austin Powers infiltrating Dr. Evil's base. Because
Yeah.
even when Steve attacks that one guy, well, first you get Robin, who just says the only little bit of Russian that she knows to distract that guy who is working at that station. And then
Mhm.
Steve attacks him, and then he ends up, luckily, he gets a lucky bounce where the guy's head bounces off of the console. And
Right.
then Dustin's reaction is, "Hey, you actually won a fight," as if that's what he would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It could have been, man, that was close, or something like that. That would have been a little bit more believable.
Yeah, but that joke was telegraphed from a couple episodes ago of you never win a fight. Have you ever won
Yeah.
a fight? You can't take out anybody. So it's it's basically, introducing a gun in Act 1, and it needs to go off by Act 3, or Act whatever it is, that
Yeah.
principle. That's what it
Yeah.
was. It's,
Absolutely.
Steve, you get this established. Remember, Steve he's lost a couple fights. Dustin points out the history of this when Steve says, "I'll attack the guard." And then if he ever is going to get into a fight, and of course he's going to be the one in this group of four, and there's going to be a fight, and that he's going to win because they're not going to get captured this quickly. So it's just that joke was coming from a mile away. And if you know anything about comedy, you know that a big part of what makes comedy work is the surprise element.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if it's not surprising, if you know what the person's going to say before they say it, it better be a really good joke,
Mhm.
because otherwise it's just not going to land.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah. Okay. So anyway, so they go through this endless tunnel where luckily nobody even walks by to hear
Right.
them or look down and see them or anything.
No
No.
cameras in this billion-dollar facility.
Nah. They spent too much on putting chrome on the walls.
But
Uh,
they did have a camera in the Department of Energy for some unknown reason.
right. Yes.
Let that logical inconsistency sink in. That there is a
Oh
camera
my
there, and that's how the
goodness.
Terminator showed up to beat up
Right.
Hopper. It's somebody's investigating this thing that has nothing to do with us, but the thing that actually we've built, we're not going to have any cameras.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Yep. Okay, and then okay, all right. So what do they even discover at the end of this? I don't even remember at this
They
point.
see that giant engine phaser thing blasting into the wall, and that's
Mm-hmm.
basically it. They're like,
Okay.
you know, oh my god, like as if they know what they're even looking at.
Right. Yeah. So essentially, their entire storyline was just catching us up or catching them up on what we already knew.
Correct. That's the entire storyline with them,
Yeah.
to see what we've already seen. And for these characters who don't know what the hell they're looking at, it would have made so much more sense for Hopper or Sam Owens, somebody from the Department of Energy who actually would understand what's happening here. Because what does Steve know about the gate? What does Dustin know about the gate? Or Robin or Erica, for that matter? They know nothing about this. Hopper and Joyce have seen it. Like Hopper's seen the actual gate, and like Joyce went in with him through whatever was already,
Yep.
because it's almost like the gate was down here, but then there was like the entry point up here in the
Right.
Department of
Yeah.
Energy. So Joyce has seen it, Hopper's seen it, and they've actually been into the upside down, so they would recognize the Soviets are trying to they've pieced it together that our government tapped into some other dimension, and they are now here invading America doing this. That would have been significant, and because this is a massive group of people, and so the idea that these four kids are going to be able to do anything with it is absurd.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
it's like you have the
Absolutely.
wrong characters finding this.
Yeah. I love that you brought up Sam Owens again because that would have actually
Yeah.
been fantastic to see
Yes.
his reaction to this. Just being like, my God, they're recreating it,
Right.
and like,
And
man,
yeah, instead
I
we
have no
right.
idea how you would write him into it, but that would be, exactly how you would do it.
Yeah. No, I know.
Uh,
He would be the perfect character to do that.
yeah.
Or even maybe if you had a big reveal of Brenner is in there with the Soviets.
Mm,
Now,
yeah.
if that does come up, and I guess like if I'm gonna call that as my prediction, if that's how they get Brenner back on the show, because that's the only thing that would make any sense of how that you've got like an American who actually knows what's going on in Hawkins, who
Mm,
has flipped sides because he doesn't think that the US government has the stomach to go through with this. And he
right.
is just so desperate to find out. Because otherwise, it's so silly. The idea that there are, I don't even know how many, maybe like to build that kind of a facility, you're talking about, like, it's impossible. Like, you could not build that without people knowing, and in the amount of
Yeah.
time that you're talking about, um like the amount of drilling equipment you would have to bring in, like,
Yeah. I mean, even like the one tunnel that those guys are walking down,
yeah,
right? Like, has anybody I live in Toronto. I know how long subway tunnels take to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Like, it takes forever. It takes years to do tunnels. Like,
exactly. And
yeah, that's
that's not even
one tunnel.
that's one, and that's not trying to be covert the entire time.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's
it,
not doing all the walls all nice and everything. It's
no,
literally just this is a hole. Like this is a
right.
tunnel in the
The
ground.
amount of materials they would have to bring in to do this. And that's where it's like watching this. I was excited when the elevator started going down at the end of episode 4. And as you pointed out, how silly it was, how fast and like how deep. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's okay. That's ridiculous. But if it did go down like a floor or two, right?
Hmm.
And it
Yeah.
slowly, like a commercial grade elevator, like it just went down one or two floors, and then there was some small facility or something, and
Yeah.
that they were in the tunnels that had been created by the demi-dogs or the plants from the upside down, like that if they had basically taken over those tunnels, then it's like,
Right.
okay, that would work. But this is just like, they can't expect any any viewer to just be buying this at this point.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. And you're absolutely right. Like, it could have just been, they go down 2 floors and it's like a 5 room facility under there,
Right.
right? Just in like the basement of the mall
Yeah.
that there's no other access to. And, through the one, window, then you see, oh man, there's the crazy device. Through another window, you see like whatever all the scientists around the computers and, whatever. You just have like a few different things.
Right.
That's all you needed. But instead, then we had to have this whole journey of them going down the elevator and then almost being discovered when the Russians come to pick up some stuff. And then they leave and then they follow them down the long, endless tunnel. um, to essentially what it should have been when they first stepped off the elevator.
Exactly.
I have no
Exactly.
idea why you need, this whole intricate set of tunnels.
No, it makes no sense. Like there's no reason for this. And you are right. I like what you brought up before of, you know, but this is stuff that we as viewers have already seen.
Yeah.
So what was the point of all of this? And there's nothing like it really it's like on the Big Bang Theory when I think it's Amy or Penny, one of them like talks about Indiana Jones, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and how she brings up how Indiana Jones is completely irrelevant to
Oh
the
yeah.
plot. That
Yeah.
like he didn't do anything. He affected nothing within the plot. And it's like, oh wait, what about this? No, no, that doesn't make, yeah. And it's just ultimately you're like, yeah, you're right. Our hero like really did nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yep. But at least that's entertaining because we're learning things as we go with indie compared to this,
Right.
where we're just following characters discovering what we already know.
Exactly.
Yay, completely pointless time wasters.
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
I don't really have anything else to say. Like, I mean, it's just, it's, uh, I mean, we can get into more of the details with it, but it's, as you pointed out earlier, because I've been struggling for the words, but basically it's entertaining, but it's not good. Like,
yeah.
it's not, like there's the distinction between like, and it's not a real distinction, but you'll hear English professors talk about this at times, like with the literary canon compared to everything else, right? And it's like basically literature with a capital L and then
Mhm.
literature, right?
Right.
It's, like there's a big difference between, reading some action novel or a mystery novel or a romance and reading like, whatever, Dostoevsky, right? That, or Faulkner or whoever, right? That there's a big
Yeah.
difference between literature, like where the writer is trying very, very hard to say something profound and compared to whatever, it's entertaining, it's fun. And I,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that like that I genuinely don't think like, well, one should be valued and the other one is trash, or one we should spend our time on and the other one we shouldn't. Because I do have multiple English degrees and I have an appreciation for all of it, right? I really like genre fiction. I really like, uh, canonized literature that'd be part of the literary canon. Like I like both. Um, so it's not that I have an issue, but like with this show, it's that it was, it had moments of profundity and it
Mhm.
was, doing pretty interesting stuff. And now it's cartoonish. And it's like, well, there's value in that too. It's just kind of disappointing because I really liked Stranger Things season one. And, you know,
Yeah. It's a lot of people I think make the same kind of distinction in cinema by by either describing it as, well, mainly by describing it as either, oh, that was a fun movie or that was a good film.
Right.
and the difference between movies and film, like, or cinema and
Right.
movies,
Yeah.
and
It's
I
like
think that
art
that's
versus entertainment.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think that it is. Although I don't, fully agree that like one can't be both.
Exactly.
It can be both. It can.
Right.
um, but yeah, Stranger Things seems to have tried to do both at the same time.
That's exactly it. It's that, and I feel like it's this episode at least made up its mind of what it
Right.
is. It's
Yeah.
like, no, this is Pulp Fiction. This is just entertainment, right? I mean, Pulp Fiction is in like stories that just get mass produced, and it's like, because you
Yeah.
pointed out all of the tropes that happen with Hopper and Joyce. It's just like, yeah, just throw that in there and throw that in there and throw that in there, and it's like that's fun too. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I mean, like, I mean, even like within my own writing, then I've done that. Like with my first book with Orphans of Liberty, then I do have some stuff where I'm like, it's just in there as entertainment and it's just supposed to be
Yeah.
fun. And if you don't like it, then that's fine. Like I wasn't trying to write an Orwellian novel, even though like I took some of the tropes of Orwell, where it's like, well, those are interesting tropes, uh, but it's supposed to just be like a fun action story with like political overtones. But I've also written other stuff which hasn't been published yet, and like one of the books, like really two of them that I have, are pretty serious, and one especially is very very serious, where it would, it's more literature, even though it's still genre, but it's genre that's taking itself very seriously. So I have an appreciation for these, for whatever it is. I don't like the shifts within an episode, like scene to scene shifts, because it's tonal whiplash.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. I want to bring up two hopefully quick points.
Okay.
One, Steve and Robin are in their sailor outfits for this entire thing, and it's purely just for the, entertainment value of, haha, see, they're dressed funny. Like,
Yep.
like, come on. Like, Steve doesn't bring a change of clothes with him, like, and couldn't have changed into anything else after work? No? Okay.
It's Austin Powers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the one. The other is it's kind of a two-parter in that first I said maybe on a previous podcast I said maybe the rat goo was being reformed to create these duplicates of the other people.
Right.
And now you have Jonathan and Nancy like killing people that they know, literally like stabbing him in the
Yeah.
neck.
Yeah.
Um, like so I don't know, like we see their bodies like melt into the same kind of goo. I'm just kind of like, so wait, was I right?
That's what, yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, and I'm like, it's really unclear what is happening, that there's a lack of rules, there's a lack of um revelation here. Nothing has really been revealed with what's going on with these monsters, because
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. We don't know. Is this invasion of the body snatchers with the pod people, where they're duplicates of them, but the real people are dead? Or is this, that it's their physical body, but their mind has been taken over by the mind flayer? And it's
yeah,
like, it feels like at this point that the show's like, both,
right, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's
And I'm
so inconsistent.
Yeah, I'm literally just I was watching it and I'm like, he just stabbed that guy in the neck. Like, what
Yeah,
is happening?
yeah.
Like, he just killed somebody.
I did think
What?
that too. I'm like, and that's where I kind of
And
enjoyed.
Nancy like bashing him over the head multiple
Yeah,
times with the fire extinguisher.
right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's definitely, I was surprised by that, where it's like, yeah, these two have never killed somebody, but then you end
Mm-hmm.
up seeing them do this, and that's where I'm like, this is okay. We're just in uncharted territory with this show now, but
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, it really is unclear what is going on. Are these pod people? Are these duplicates from the goo? Then if you kill them, then it reassembles itself into that monster thing. Like, what's next? And it was just such a frustrating thing that it just felt like, well, we can't have Eleven still recovering from her fight with Billy, and so she can't go after these things. That's why they're just going to wait there in the waiting room. Literally, they are just sitting in a waiting room.
Yes.
Because like, we don't know what to do with these characters. Let's just put them on pause. What's a good place for that? How about the waiting room while we wait to figure out what we're doing with them? Okay, perfect. On the nose, you got it. So then it's that's literally what's happening here. And then
Yep.
um, it here's the thing: it takes all of Eleven's strength to not even kill, but just to fight off to some degree Billy.
Mm-hmm.
But 90-pound Nancy Wheeler can kill one of these things with no mind powers, right?
Yep.
Jonathan, who is, a fairly small guy, can kill one of these things as well. 11, who can literally throw Billy through a brick wall, that she can like take this huge like barbell with like big plates on it and just throw it against like, yeah, no, like that's gonna, completely drain her and he's gonna be fine. But these other
Right.
guys, scissors to the neck? Oh no.
Yep. 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 Okay. So we're we're gonna be moving on to the next episode.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I want to see what happens with this giant creature, but at this point, it does feel more like a serial television show, like just a network show
Yep.
where it's, oh, here's the teaser, here's the tag for what's going to happen in the next episode. Like you got that in the last episode with the elevator
Yep.
sinking, and now you get it again with this beast thing.
Yep.
Um, and it's so frustrating after, like 2 episodes ago, or was it two? No, I guess it was last episode
Mm.
where he got, like the final fight. Wait, when was it? When we had like Billy, um, and that Vera Lynn song. Was that 2 episodes ago?
No, that was episode 4. But
Okay.
I was that the I don't
Oh, I
know.
guess that wasn't. Was that maybe not the end? Because I'm. Oh no, that was the end. Yeah, they did the elevator thing earlier. Anyway, so
Yeah.
we got that at the end of the last episode, which was
Right.
really, really satisfying.
Yeah.
And now this, where it's just such a, teaser and in the worst possible way.
Yeah, no, it really is. And that's where it does, it feels like pulp fiction, not the movie, but the literary term, right?
Hmm.
That just genre fiction where it's just like the action serials. I mean, I didn't really watch them, but the action serials of like I want to say the 1930s, 40s, 50s of like Flash Gordon and stuff like that, where
Hmm.
they would show
Yeah.
the shorts at the movie theater, and then it's like they're just short little parts of it, but it always ends. I mean, like this is literally like the idea of a cliffhanger, right? Like where it comes from.
Hmm.
It's like, well, if you want them to come back next week, have him hanging from the edge of a cliff, and it's like after a certain point, then you start to realize you're like it always ends that way, but the hero's always okay. So
Yeah.
then the tension just dissipates because, and that's how it kind of feels. It's just like, okay, do you really think though that this like goo monster is going to kill Nancy or Jonathan or any of the kids in the waiting room? No.
No.
Do you really think that like the Soviets are going to do anything awful to Steve, Robin, Dustin, or Erica?
No.
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 And like Joyce and Hopper, they seem to be to some degree in like they were in danger to some degree. They were at least being like shot at. I mean, I guess Nancy and Jonathan were like in a major fight as well, but like Joyce and Hopper not in danger, and now they've got Murray Bauman, and
Right. Yeah, it was because we had talked before about, how like the kids were all wearing plot armor,
yeah,
and now it's everybody's wearing plot armor.
everybody's wearing plot armor. Like no one's in danger. I would be shocked, beyond shocked, if there's a single, character who's on the good side in this season who gets killed. Um,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to think of like you could tell that Bob Newby was in trouble. You said that in our discussion. You were
Yes.
like, as soon as I saw him, I knew he was dead. He wasn't lasting
Yeah.
to the next season. And it's because, and as you pointed out, because he wanted to take Joyce and the Byers family out of Hawkins. So it's like, well, that can't last. Like
Right.
they're not going to leave, so he's going to have to get killed off. Um, but with this, I'm trying to think, like, do we have anybody who is possibly like, I mean, maybe Billy, but Billy's a bad guy.
Right. Yep.
Aside from that, like, I think everyone's totally fine.
Yep. Maybe Max could sacrifice herself. Maybe.
I genuinely don't think they're going to have any of the younger ones get killed off.
Mm.
I don't think they have the stomach for it. I really believe that. I just don't think that they're going to kill off a kid.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well,
It sucks because basically I'll just say this and then we'll be done. Like George R. R. Martin, then people criticize him because he kills off so many prominent characters, and he said the way he's explained it, I've heard him explain it multiple times. And this, like with Game of Thrones, by the way, in case people don't know what I'm talking about with George R. R. Martin, that he said he loves genre, he loves the elements of genre fiction, but he hates the fact that there's no surprises if all of the characters are safe. So he's like, I love being surprised, but I also love genre. And so I want to do something that's within a genre. So in this case, within fantasy, but no one, genuinely, truly, no one is safe. So the entire time that you're reading A Song of Ice and Fire or watching the show Game of Thrones, then you know that there is no character who is safe, that anyone can be killed off. And that's what makes it so tense and so good, because it doesn't feel like, it's just so much easier to suspend your own disbelief and to be invested in the show and to find it compelling, because you want to keep watching, because when people are in a dangerous situation, you don't know if they're going to live or die. And especially if you like a character or if you identify with a character, you desperately want them to live. And you know that not everybody lives when they go up against, dangerous foes. And that's kind of how the show felt before in season one.
I mean, 11 is a perfect example of that. Like the end of season one, where you feel like, oh man, she's gonna sacrifice herself for this, and you feel like she did.
Yeah. For a
And
moment.
for a moment. Yeah. And then season two, then it's like, yeah, I can close the gate. And we're just kind of like, yeah, you can. You'll be fine. There'll be a season three.
Exactly, because we already know that there's going to be other seasons, and so that's why I'm saying it's kind of frustrating, and I don't know what they do, because they either need to toughen up from a writing standpoint and actually do things that are daring to do what Hitchcock did in 1960, where he had his main character in Psycho get killed off halfway through the movie, and it's like, to say that's my star, she's going to die. And she's going to die fairly early in this thing. And, audiences are going to go, you can't do that. And it's like, I just did. And it's like, what am I watching? And like, if they actually were daring and they did something that was done 60 years ago, they could be innovative somehow by doing that. But
oh man.
Now
I'm imagining a superhero story where that happens. it's
Wouldn't that be
named
something?
like, yeah, that it would be great if it was like named, after like a superhero, and you're watching the one character for half the movie, and then they die, and I guess somebody else could start to take the mantle from that point. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I could get on board with that.
Yeah, to do something new within the genre. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't see them doing that. I feel like that's why I'm getting to be a little more forgiving of this. I'm like, I guess if you guys aren't willing to write with without any fear of how fans will react, that if you're just pandering at this point, then I guess just do something that's just pure silliness and is kind of entertaining.
Hmm.
Um, because it's like if you don't want to be serious anymore, if you don't want to take yourself seriously as a show, then okay, I guess you can lean into this. There are no stakes, and you're
Yeah.
really watching for comedy, for funny little moments of dialogue and interactions between characters, and to see those crazy Russians like it's a Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon, and you know.
I was honestly thinking about Rocky and Bullwinkle earlier when we were talking about tune in next week.
Right. Right, exactly. Which is like a parody of those things. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
basically what the show is. And it's like, okay, I guess that's what it is. But I really feel like the tone is they're gonna flip back with the last,
Hmm.
especially the last two episodes. I don't know what we're gonna get with episode 6, but the next the last two, like episodes 7 and 8, then they're gonna have to make it super serious again. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The next episode, I believe, is E pluribus unum.
right.
So,
Latin, out of the many, one.
yeah.
So, which my students had no idea. Like I told them, I'm like, that's like the principle of America and the concept of the melting pot. And I'm like, but I wrote it on the board. I'm like, like, but you guys know this. I know that you've seen this. And they're like, we've never seen that before in our lives. And I said, I guarantee you every single one of you has seen this before. No, we haven't. And then I literally had to hand out a penny. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's on the penny. And they're like, I've never read a penny. I'm like, how have you never read like coins? Like at no point, like, do you know what I
Oh my
mean? Like
goodness.
at
Yeah.
some point you get bored and you look at these things, and especially when you're a kid, you study them to know
Yeah.
like what's on there. I
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, if you didn't know that, folks, it's on the penny in the US. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that Canada has a penny anymore.
No. No. Yeah. Was it
But
what did we have writing on the Canadian penny? Like I know we
um,
had writing. It said Canada. There was the leaf, like the maple leaf on the front, and the Queen was on the back. And
yeah, it said 1 cent.
yeah, 1 cent was on there. And I think it just said Queen Elizabeth II.
Yep, that
But I
sounds about
don't know if
right.
we had any other writing.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. They're
Anyway,
collector's items now.
yes.
All right, we're done.
Yeah.
All right, on to episode 6. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Feel free to comment below. Bye.
Hey.
Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I, I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right, we're gonna go home. Yeah. All right, we're done.